Welcome back to Narrative Network. Imagine a world where legends come to life, where the bond between a young woman and her magical horse holds the key to an ancient treasure buried deep within a forgotten cave. But this isn't just a story about gold and riches. It's a tale of love, sacrifice, and the power of a choice that will change everything. As Leila embarks on a journey filled with danger, mystery, and magic, she'll discover that the true treasure isn't what lies in the cave, but what she's willing to give up to save the one she loves. Stay with us as we unravel a story that will pull at your heartstrings, filled with twists, emotion, and a lesson that will stay with you long after the last moment fades. This is a journey you won't want to miss. Once upon a time, nestled in a quiet village surrounded by thick forests and rolling hills, there lived a young woman named Leila. She was kind-hearted, resilient, and had a deep love for adventure. Her family had always been poor, struggling to make ends meet. They owned a small farm, but the soil was not fertile, and the crops barely fed them through the winter. Leila had lost her mother when she was a child, leaving her with only her elderly father, whose health was failing. Leila's father often told her stories about the treasures hidden in the nearby mountains. These stories were passed down from generation to generation, tales of ancient kings who buried their wealth deep inside caves, protected by enchantments and magical creatures. Although most dismissed these as legends, Leila never stopped believing in the possibility of a great discovery. The thought of finding the treasure filled her with hope. Hope that one day she could take care of her father and give him the life he deserved before it was too late. One crisp autumn day, as Leila was tending to the horses in the stable, she noticed something unusual. One of the horses, a stallion named Noor, was acting strangely. Noor had always been special to Leila. He was a majestic black horse with a shimmering coat that seemed to glisten under the sunlight. Her father had bought him when Leila was just a child, and they had grown up together. Over the years, they had formed a deep bond, one where they could almost understand each other without words. On this particular day, Noor refused to stay still. He neighed and pawed at the ground, his eyes filled with a kind of wild intensity. Leila, sensing that something was wrong, approached him slowly. "What's the matter, Noor?" she asked gently, stroking his mane. The horse nuzzled her shoulder and then, to her surprise, nudged her toward the edge of the forest. Leila hesitated for a moment, but trusted Noor with her life. Without another thought, she saddled him up and followed his lead, riding deeper into the woods. As they rode through the dense forest, Leila noticed that the path they were on seemed unfamiliar. She had explored the forest many times before, yet she had never seen this particular trail. It twisted and turned, leading them to places hidden from sight. The air grew colder, and the trees became thicker, their branches intertwining above like a canopy that blocked out the sky. Suddenly, they emerged into a clearing. At its center stood a massive stone structure, a cave. Leila's heart raced as she recognized it from the stories her father used to tell. This was the legendary Cave of the Kings, where an ancient treasure was said to be hidden. Noor stopped at the entrance of the cave, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Leila dismounted, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. She could feel the weight of history pressing down on her, the air thick with an eerie stillness. As she took a step toward the cave, Noor let out a low, calming whinny, as if to reassure her that she was not alone. With her hand resting on Noor's mane, Leila ventured inside. The cave was dark and damp, the walls covered in ancient carvings and strange symbols that Leila couldn't understand. The deeper they went, the stronger the feeling of magic became, as though the air itself was vibrating with energy. Noor led the way, his hooves echoing off the stone floor. Leila marveled at the beauty of the wall. Crystals embedded in the walls shimmered faintly, casting a soft glow that illuminated their path. The air was cool, and the faint sound of water dripping from stalactites filled the silence. Despite the darkness, Leila didn't feel afraid. She felt guided, protected. As they ventured further, they came across an ancient stone door, engraved with runes that seemed to pulse with a faint golden light. Leila approached cautiously, running her fingers over the carvings. To her amazement, the door began to hum softly under her touch. Suddenly, Noor stepped forward and stomped his hoof. The door creaked open, revealing a passage that led even deeper into the mountain. Leila's heart swelled with awe as she realized that Noor was no ordinary horse. He was connected to this place, part of the magic that protected the treasure. Perhaps he had been waiting all this time for someone worthy, someone who could unlock the secrets of the cave. They continued through the passage, which opened into a vast chamber. In the center of the room, bathed in the soft glow of the crystals, stood a massive stone pedestal. Upon it rested a golden chest, intricately decorated with jewels and ornate designs. Leila's breath caught in her throat as she realized she had found the treasure her father had spoken of. But before she could approach the chest, a deep voice echoed through the chamber. "Who dares to enter the Cave of Kings?" Leila froze, her eyes darting around the room. From the shadows emerged a figure, tall and imposing, cloaked in darkness. His face was hidden beneath a hood, but his eyes glowed like embers. He was the guardian of the treasure, a spirit bound to protect it from those unworthy of its riches. Leila's voice trembled as she spoke. "I am Leila, daughter of the village farmer. I seek the treasure not for greed, but to save my family from poverty. My father is ill, and I want to give him the life he deserves." The guardian studied her for a long moment, his fiery eyes boring into her soul. "Many have come before you, seeking the treasure for selfish reasons. You say you seek it for love, but how do I know you are telling the truth?" Leila felt tears well up in her eyes as she thought of her father, the sacrifices he had made for her, and the hard life they had endured together. She spoke from the heart. "My father has given me everything, despite having nothing. I would trade this treasure for his health in an instant if I could. He is all I have left, and I would do anything to save him. Please, I beg you, let me take this treasure to help him." The guardian was silent for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he spoke again, his voice softer this time. "Your heart is pure, Leila, but the treasure you seek is not what you think it is." Leila blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" The guardian gestured toward Noor, who had been standing quietly by her side. "This horse, Noor, is the true treasure of this cave. He is no ordinary creature. He is a magical being, bound to this place by an ancient spell. His magic can heal, protect, and guide. But he cannot leave this cave without a worthy companion." Leila looked at Noor, her heart swelling with emotion. She had always known there was something special about him, but she never could have imagined the depth of his power. Tears filled her eyes as she realized the truth. "Then, Noor can save my father?" The guardian nodded. "Yes, but there is a price." Leila's heart skipped a beat. "What price?" The guardian's voice was solemn. "To break Noor's bond with this cave and unleash his full power, you must be willing to sacrifice something of great value. The greater the sacrifice, the more powerful Noor's magic will be." Leila felt a lump form in her throat. She thought of her father, lying weak and frail in their small cottage, and of all the years he had spent caring for her. She thought of Noor, who had been her loyal companion through thick and thin. The decision weighed heavily on her heart. What must I sacrifice?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The guardian's gaze softened. "That is for you to decide. The magic will know the worth of your sacrifice." Leila's mind raced. She thought about offering her wealth or her belongings, but she knew those were not enough. Then, the answer came to her, and it hit her like a wave of grief. She would have to give up the thing she loved most, her bond with Noor. Tears streamed down her face as she turned to Noor. He had been by her side for as long as she could remember, her closest friend and companion. To lose him would be like losing a part of herself. But if it meant saving her father, she knew what she had to do. "I offer my bond with Noor," Leila said, her voice trembling. "I will release him from his bond to me, so he can use his magic to save my father." The guardian nodded, his expression unreadable. "It is done." Suddenly, a bright light filled the chamber. Noor stepped forward, his eyes glowing with a brilliant golden light. The magic of the cave swirled around him, and Leila could feel their connection fading. It was as though a part of her soul was being torn away, leaving a hollow ache in its place. "Noor?" she whispered, her voice breaking. The horse nuzzled her gently, as if to say goodbye, before stepping toward the golden chest. As he touched it with his hoof, the chest disintegrated into a shower of light, and the room was filled with a warm, healing energy. When the light faded, Leila found herself standing alone in the cave. Noor was gone, and the treasure had vanished. All that remained was a deep sense of loss and a quiet peace that settled over her heart. The guardian approached her, his voice gentle. "You have made the ultimate sacrifice, Leila. Noor's magic will now heal your father and bring prosperity to your family. But in losing Noor, you have also gained something greater: selflessness, the truest treasure of all." Leila nodded, tears streaming down her face. She knew the guardian was right, but it didn't make the pain any easier to bear. She had lost her closest friend, but she had gained something more: a deep understanding of love and sacrifice. When she returned to her village, Leila found her father sitting up in bed, his color restored and his strength returning. He smiled at her, the lines of worry and illness gone from his face. "You did it," he said softly. "You found the treasure." Leila smiled through her tears, hugging her father tightly. She didn't tell him about Noor or the sacrifice she had made. Some things, she knew, were too precious to share. Years passed, and Leila's village prospered. Her family farm thrived, and her father lived out the rest of his days in peace. The legend of the treasure in the Cave of Kings continued to be told, though no one ever found it again. But Leila never forgot Noor. She often visited the cave, standing at its entrance and remembering the loyal horse who had given her the greatest gift of all. And though he was gone, she could still feel his presence, like a whisper in the wind, reminding her that love, sacrifice, and the magic of friendship were the true treasures in life. And so, the story of Leila and Noor became a legend in its own right, a tale of love, loss, and the power of selflessness.